I found out my wife was cheating because of a grocery receipt. Not lipstick on a collar. Not a late-night text. Not some anonymous message from a burner account. A crumpled receipt for 2 steaks, a bottle of expensive red wine, candles, and a hotel parking stub shoved deep into the passenger side door of her car. The problem was, I'd been out of town that night for work. For 12 years, I thought I had a solid marriage. Not perfect, but solid. My wife, Melissa, and I had built a life that looked stable from the outside. Nice house in the suburbs. Shared bank accounts. 2 cars. A golden retriever named Archie. No kids, mostly because she always said she wasn't ready yet, and I never pushed. I was 38, worked in commercial construction management, and spent half my life solving other people's disasters. At home, I wanted peace. I thought that's what I had. Melissa worked part-time at a boutique law office downtown. She was polished, charming, and had the kind of smile that made people trust her instantly. I used to be proud of that. I liked being the guy she came home to. I liked hearing her talk about her day while I made dinner. I liked believing we were on the same team. Looking back, the signs were probably there. She started guarding her phone like it contained nuclear codes. She took longer getting ready for errands. She suddenly cared a lot more about lingerie than she had in years. But when you love someone and your whole life is tied to theirs, your brain does this pathetic thing where it explains away every red flag so you don't have to face what it might mean. So I ignored it. Then came the receipt. I had borrowed her SUV because my truck was in the shop. I was digging around for a pen when I found the folded paper tucked into the side compartment. At first, it meant nothing. But the date caught my eye. Then the hotel parking stub fell out onto my lap. I remember just sitting there in the driveway, staring at it. That hotel was 40 minutes from our house, near the riverfront. Not the kind of place you stop at by accident. Not the kind of place you park at just to think. And definitely not the kind of place my wife had any reason to be near on a Wednesday night when she told me she was eating takeout and watching reality TV alone. I should have confronted her right then. Maybe a smarter man would have. Instead, I said nothing. I told myself I needed proof. Real proof. Something undeniable. Not because I still doubted her, but because I know how people like Melissa operate. She was quick on her feet. Charming under pressure. The type who could look you dead in the face, swear on her mother's life, and make you feel guilty for questioning her. If I was going to blow up my life, I wasn't doing it with a grocery receipt and a bad feeling. So I watched. For the next 2 weeks, I became a stranger in my own house. I smiled when she smiled. I kissed her goodbye in the mornings. I listened to her talk about coworkers and sale racks and some client at the office who kept bringing in paperwork late. And every time her phone buzzed and she turned it face down, something inside me hardened a little more. I started paying attention to patterns. She always texted in the laundry room. She took girls' night calls on the back patio. Every Thursday, she claimed she stayed late helping prepare files at the office, yet came home showered, makeup redone, and weirdly energized. One Friday, I told her I might be sent to Columbus for a weekend site inspection. That was a lie. I only wanted to see what she'd do with freedom and no supervision. She almost looked too calm when I told her. That hurt more than I expected. No sadness. No disappointment. No, I'll miss you. Just a casual nod and, okay, just text me when you get there. That's when I knew. Saturday morning, I packed an overnight bag, threw it in the truck, kissed her on the cheek, and drove off like a husband heading out of town. I made it 3 blocks before circling back and parking near the entrance of our subdivision where I wouldn't be seen. I sat there for almost an hour, gripping the steering wheel, feeling like an idiot. Then a black BMW pulled into my driveway. I knew that car. It belonged to Daniel Harper, one of the attorneys from Melissa's office. Mid-40s. Expensive watch. Soft hands. The kind of guy who probably called himself self-made after inheriting half his clients. I'd met him twice at office Christmas parties. He had that smug, polished way of talking to blue-collar men like me, friendly enough to avoid consequences, condescending enough to make his opinion clear. He walked to my front door carrying a bottle of champagne. Melissa let him in before he even knocked. I wish I could say I stormed in like some movie hero. I didn't. I sat frozen, staring at my own front door, while the blood rushed so loudly in my ears I could barely hear myself think. A huge part of me still hoped there was some explanation. Maybe he was dropping something off. Maybe this was business. Maybe I was losing my mind. 20 minutes later, the blinds in our bedroom moved. That was explanation enough. I don't remember crossing the lawn. I only remember the pounding in my chest and the feeling that my whole body was moving on instinct. I unlocked the front door with my key and stepped into my own house like an intruder. Then Melissa did what cheaters always do when reality finally catches up to them. She said, "It's not what it looks like." I actually laughed. I couldn't help it. I looked at the champagne on the kitchen counter, the 2 glasses, the candles she must have lit in the bedroom, and then back at my wife standing there in the wreckage of our marriage. "Really?" I said. "Then explain it. I'd love to hear this one." Daniel started talking first, which told me everything I needed to know about the kind of man he was. Not apologizing. Not ashamed. Just trying to manage the situation like it was some awkward scheduling conflict. "Let's all calm down," he said. I turned to him so fast he actually stepped back. "You need to get out of my house before I forget how much I have to lose." Melissa started crying then. Instant tears. Oscar-worthy. She reached for me, and I pulled away so hard it was like touching fire. "Please," she said. "Please, just let me explain." But I was done listening. Because in that moment, standing in the hallway of the house I paid for, looking at the woman I trusted and the man she chose over me, I realized something cold and permanent. This wasn't a mistake. This was a plan. And if they'd turned my home into their playground, I was about to turn her perfect little life into a courtroom exhibit. I didn't scream. I didn't throw punches. Instead, I did something that confused both of them more than anything else could have. I pulled out my phone and started recording. At first they thought I was bluffing. Melissa kept trying to step closer, wiping fake tears off her cheeks like she was performing for an audience. "Stop it," she whispered. "You're being dramatic." But I kept filming. Daniel suddenly understood the situation much faster than she did. His eyes shifted from me to the phone, and the confident lawyer mask cracked just a little. "Listen," he said carefully. "Let's talk like adults." "Great idea," I replied. "Start talking." Neither of them did. The silence stretched long enough to become uncomfortable. I recorded the half-empty champagne bottle on the counter. The 2 glasses. The candles on the tray Melissa used for special dinners. Then I pointed the camera straight at Daniel. "What's your name?" I asked calmly. He hesitated. "Daniel Harper." "And where do you work, Daniel?" He clenched his jaw. Melissa finally snapped. "Stop this. You're humiliating me." I lowered the phone slightly and looked at her. "You did that yourself." Then I turned and walked out of the house. I didn't even slam the door. The drive that followed is still a blur in my memory. My hands were shaking so badly I had to pull over twice. Anger, humiliation, disbelief, all of it crashing together at once. But underneath all of that chaos, something else started forming. Clarity. Melissa thought she could cry her way out of anything. Daniel thought his money and connections would smooth things over. And maybe they were right, if I reacted like an idiot. But I didn't. Instead of going back home, I drove straight to my brother's place across town. He opened the door, saw my face, and didn't ask a single question. He just handed me a beer and told me to sit down. I showed him the video. When it ended, he leaned back slowly and said the 3 words that changed everything. "You call a lawyer?" "Not yet." But I was about to. Monday morning, I walked into the office of a divorce attorney named Karen Whitmore. I'd found her through a coworker who once described her as the nicest shark you'll ever meet. That description turned out to be perfect. Karen watched the entire video without interrupting. No reaction. No judgment. Just quiet focus. When it ended, she folded her hands on the desk. "How long have you been married?" 12 years. "Any children?" "No." "House in both names?" "Yes." She nodded slowly, then leaned forward. "Do you want revenge, or do you want protection?" The question caught me off guard. "What's the difference?" I asked. Revenge feels good for about 5 minutes, she said calmly. Protection lasts the rest of your life. Then she pointed at my phone. But I'll say this. That video was very smart. For the first time since Saturday, I felt a tiny spark of control return. Karen explained something I didn't fully understand before that meeting. Melissa worked at a law firm. She was involved with a partner in that same firm. If that relationship overlapped with company resources, office hours, or violated workplace policy, it could become a serious issue for both of them. And the house? That was where things got interesting. Because while the mortgage listed both of our names, the down payment, the entire down payment, had come from an inheritance my father left me. Karen tapped her pen against the folder. If we do this correctly, she said, you may walk away with far more than you expect. That was the moment I realized something important. Melissa thought she had betrayed a husband. What she had actually done, was start a legal war she didn't see coming. And the courtroom was the one place where tears didn't mean anything. The moment Karen said the words, legal war, something inside me shifted. Up until then, everything had felt emotional. Personal. Raw. Like my entire life had just been ripped apart and thrown on the floor. But Karen didn't treat it that way. To her, it was a case. Evidence. Assets. Documentation. Strategy. And for the first time since walking into my house and seeing Melissa with Daniel, I realized I didn't have to react emotionally. I could respond intelligently. Karen leaned back in her chair and slid a yellow legal pad toward me. First rule, she said. From this moment forward, you do nothing without thinking about how it looks in court. I nodded. No yelling. No threats. No angry messages. Everything calm. Everything documented. Then she wrote 3 words on the paper. Assets. Timeline. Evidence. We build the story, she explained. And we build it better than she can. Over the next hour we went through my entire life with Melissa piece by piece. Bank accounts. Retirement funds. Credit cards. Property. Insurance. Everything. That's when I learned something else interesting. Melissa had been spending money. Not huge amounts that would trigger alarms. But consistent spending. Hotel charges. Restaurants. Ride shares. Gifts. Karen raised an eyebrow as she scanned the statements. She's sloppy, she said. Meaning? Meaning she never expected to be caught. Then she smiled slightly. People like that are very easy to beat in court. That same afternoon Karen filed the divorce paperwork. Melissa was served 2 days later at work. I know exactly when it happened because my phone exploded with calls 10 minutes afterward. First Melissa. Then her mother. Then 3 different unknown numbers. I let every single one go to voicemail. Karen had been very clear about that. Silence is power, she told me. Melissa eventually sent a text. Just 3 words. Please talk to me. I didn't respond. Instead, I focused on what Karen told me to do next. Documentation. I gathered everything. Financial records. Mortgage paperwork. My father's inheritance documents. Every message Melissa had sent over the last few months. Even small things that once seemed meaningless. Patterns began to appear. Thursday, late nights at the office. Restaurant bills for 2. Hotel parking fees. Daniel Harper's name showed up everywhere once I knew where to look. But the real turning point came a week later. Karen called me early in the morning. You might want to sit down, she said. I could hear something in her voice. Excitement. What happened? I asked. Well, she said slowly, I decided to look a little deeper into Mr. Daniel Harper. And apparently, your wife isn't the only married person involved in this situation. I blinked. What? Karen chuckled quietly. Daniel Harper has a wife. 2 kids. And from what I can tell, she has absolutely no idea about any of this. For a moment I didn't say anything. Then Karen continued. And here's where it gets interesting. Daniel is not just an employee at that firm. He's a partner. Which means any scandal tied to him can affect the entire company. I could already see where this was going. Karen lowered her voice slightly. If his firm discovers he's having an affair with someone working under him, using company time, potentially company resources. She didn't need to finish the sentence. It would explode. Careers could end. Reputations could collapse. And suddenly the power dynamic Melissa thought she had, completely disappeared. Karen paused before adding one final thing. Oh, and there's another detail. What is it? The prenup Melissa insisted you signed 12 years ago. My stomach tightened. Yeah. Karen laughed softly. She wrote it herself, through the same law firm Daniel Harper works at. I frowned. Why does that matter? Because, Karen said calmly, there's a very strong argument that the agreement is now a conflict of interest. I sat there in silence. Then the realization hit me like a truck. The man Melissa cheated with might be the exact reason she loses everything. And we hadn't even stepped into a courtroom yet. 3 weeks later, everything finally exploded. Daniel's wife found out. I didn't contact her. Karen didn't either. But news travels fast when legal documents start moving through the same circles where people work and socialize. Apparently someone at the firm connected the dots when Melissa was served divorce papers at the office. Within days the entire place knew. And when Daniel's wife discovered the truth, she didn't stay quiet. She filed for divorce the same week. That's when the pressure started crushing Daniel from every direction. His firm opened an internal investigation. Affairs between partners and employees were a serious violation of their policies, especially if company resources were involved. Suddenly the confident lawyer who walked into my house with champagne was fighting to keep his career from collapsing. Melissa panicked. For the first time since everything started, she came to see me in person. She showed up outside my brother's house, eyes swollen, makeup smeared, looking nothing like the calm woman who had once told me everything was not what it looked like. She begged. She cried. She said it was a mistake, that she was confused, that Daniel had pressured her, that we could fix everything. But by that point, something inside me had already shut off. I didn't yell. I didn't insult her. I simply told her the truth. You didn't make a mistake, I said quietly. You made a series of choices. Then I got back in my truck and drove away. 2 months later, we stood in court. Melissa looked small sitting at the opposite table. Daniel wasn't there, but his name appeared in the evidence again and again as financial records and timelines were presented. Karen had built the case piece by piece, and when the judge reviewed everything, the affair, the financial spending, the inheritance used for the house, and the conflicts around the prenup, the outcome became very clear. The house went to me. Most of the shared savings stayed with me. Melissa walked away with a fraction of what she expected. When the hearing ended, she tried to speak to me in the hallway. I didn't stop walking. The strange thing is, I don't feel victorious. 12 years of marriage ended in a courtroom. That's not something anyone truly wins. But I did learn something important. Trust is expensive. And the moment someone decides to gamble with it, they might lose far more than they ever imagined. If you enjoyed this story, make sure to like the video and subscribe to the channel. I post new Reddit stories about cheating, relationships, and crazy life situations every day. And if you have a story like this, feel free to share it in the comments.